This is not the behavior I understand. Where did that come from? I'm supposed to be his example.
I hate what he stands for. I hate what he did. Failing these 2 drugs tests is unacceptable.
No ban, clear to fight, no fine.
And ultimately, forget the egg thing, he struck him. And that could have had serious consequences, not just for Mr. Ben, but also for the show itself also.
The shocking news has just arrived that Chris Eubank Jr. has been fined £100,000 by the British Boxing Board of Control for the egg slapping incident involving Conor Benn. Meanwhile, Chris Eubank Jr.'s behavior has sparked concerns on multiple occasions, prompting his father, Chris Eubank Sr., to question his actions. Eubank Sr. confronted his son, wondering where such erratic behavior had come from, especially considering that he himself had always been a strong role model for his son. In a candid moment, Eubank Sr. shared details of his conversation with Eubank Jr., seeking to understand what had driven him to carry out such a bizarre stunt.
This is not the behavior I understand. Where did that come from? I'm supposed to be his example. But I spoke with him a few days ago and he said to me about this egg thing. He said, Dad, he's a cheat. Okay, and we're promoting the fight. And these people have me under a great deal of pressure and the environment is very messy and I got pulled in.
Expanding on the situation, Chris Eubank Sr. revealed the underlying reasons behind his son's behavior. With Chris Eubank Jr. distancing himself due to their ongoing back and forth, Eubank Sr. shared how this tension, along with other contributing factors, had caused him significant distress. He also addressed the growing belief that the stunt was premeditated, confirming many people's opinions on the matter, as expressed in Chris Eubank Jr.'s words.
I premeditated it because these people are all over me, telling me that my dad doesn't like me. It's me alone, Dad. So, that's what I thought I'd do, and I've justified it. He supposedly had some type of chemical which is born of eggs, and and I was going to let him know because he's been very cruel to me in terms of his language, as is also the promoters and Conor's father. I've not been there for this reason, Mr. and Mrs. Public.
Further confronting his son, Eubank Sr. demanded an explanation for why he had felt the need to carry out such an act. He expressed disbelief upon hearing his son's defense, emphasizing the importance of upholding genuine values. Eubank Sr. reflected on how the world has changed, noting that success today seems to come at the expense of insulting others, a trend he found deeply concerning. He said, help me because we are Great Britain. That's who we are. I don't care what they're doing. We have to bring them into a straight line because where is this country going with this behavior? Among those who shared their reaction to the fine was Oladipo, who deemed it very silly and criticized the British Boxing Board of Control for imposing such a penalty. He further pointed out that while the British Boxing Board of Control may have found success in getting revenge for the infamous egg slap incident, it remains to be seen how Eubank Jr. will manage to pay such a hefty fine. Oladipo expressed doubt about the fairness of the fine, questioning whether it truly served a constructive purpose or if it was merely an overreaction.
Chris Eubank Jr. fined £100,000 by the British Boxing Board of Control for the egg slap. They don't say that here, they say for the egg incident. That's a joke. Honestly, I think that's a joke. And look, this isn't me trying to condone it, right? But come on, man. What is this? Where have they got that amount from? So someone just plucked that amount from thin air, haven't they? And that is, surely it's just a slap on the wrist for Chris.
Ade Oladipo continued to condemn the imposition of the £100,000 fine on Chris Eubank Jr., arguing that he hadn't committed a violation of such magnitude. Voicing his frustrations, Ade pointed out that if it had been Derek Chisora, who has a history of criminal behavior, he might understand the fine, but in Eubank Jr.'s case, the situation was entirely different. Questioning how Chris Jr. would manage to pay such a large sum, Ade suggested that an agreement would likely be reached amidst the chaos, and there was a chance that Chris Eubank Jr. would end up paying only a fraction of the fine, perhaps even just a tenth of the amount.
If you have priors, then okay, cool. If it was, say it was Derek Chisora that did the egg slap, fine. Derek Chisora's got quite a few priors, but Chris Eubank is always very, very good and always very respectful at press conferences, never does anything. So where have they just got this from? I just find it so, and I don't know, man. That's them wanting to kind of lay down the law, and it just doesn't have to be that. I'll be very shocked if Chris pays that. I think that they're going to come to some sort of agreement that we don't know about, where Chris maybe pays a tenth of that, because that's just stupid.
Further sharing his thoughts, Ade pointed out that the news of the fine has only fueled the ongoing hype surrounding the fight, with fans now more determined than ever to back their favorites, regardless of the cost. He argued that the imposition of the fine over Chris Eubank Jr.'s egg slap incident has, in fact, added to the buzz around the fight. Ade also stated that Chris Jr. is the type of person who would never willingly pay £100,000, expressing his bewilderment at the entire situation and how it had spiraled out of control.
I think you guys know how Chris is. You think Chris is willingly going to give up 100 grand? Absolutely no chance. I think it's excessive. And look, it's made the fight. I mean, the fight was already big, but now the fight's even bigger because of that. Because of that, the fight trended around the world. People are going to tune in, and they always were, but this has definitely added an extra couple of zeros on everyone's paycheck because of Chris Eubank. So I think it's stupid.
Expressing his distress, Ade believes it's silly for the British Boxing Board of Control to impose such a fine, but at the same time, he also acknowledges that some fans are questioning whether the egg slap incident could have caused harm, potentially injuring Conor Benn's eyes or even affecting his mouth, possibly leading to a failed test and the fight being stopped. While Ade recognizes these concerns, he emphasizes that since no significant harm occurred, the fine should not have been imposed in the first place. He also raised important questions about where such a large amount of money will go. Will it line the pockets of the British Boxing Board of Control members, or will it be directed towards charity? Ade expressed a keen interest in finding out more about the destination of the funds, calling attention to the need for transparency in this matter.
I know their argument is going to be that it was dangerous and it could have led to this and it could have led to that, and what if the egg went into to Conor Benn's eye? But it didn't. None of that happened. None of that happened. So I think it's stupid, and I think they need to look at themselves. And look, say it is 100 grand. Where does that 100 grand go to? Like, does it go to charity? Does it go into someone's back pocket? Or sorry, what I mean back pocket, I mean, does it go into the British Boxing Board of Control's accounts? Like, where does that money go to? I need to know more. I need to know more. But I just think it's a bit silly.
On the other hand, Robert Smith, the General Secretary of the British Boxing Board of Control, spoke to Gareth A. Davies to explain why it was crucial to impose the £100,000 fine on Chris Eubank Jr. Smith pointed out that all issues with Conor Benn had been resolved, his suspension had been lifted, and there were no longer any concerns regarding him. However, when it came to fining Chris Eubank Jr., Smith emphasized that the fine was a result of Eubank Jr.'s misconduct, which was evident not only during the press conference, but also in his lack of responsiveness during the board's hearing. Smith further criticized Ben Shalom, who was present at the hearings but left before the decisions were made, something Robert described as disgusting and disrespectful.
Well, the Conor Benn issue is gone. It's finished, whether we like it or not, etc. It was dealt with by an independent panel. His suspension has been lifted. He's okay. He's clear to box. There's nothing we can do about that. It's a completely independent panel. With regard to Chris Eubank, and the hearing, he didn't attend. He didn't send any legal representative. The only person who came and represented him was promoter Ben Shalom. We've watched the videos. I'm not part of the decision making. I have to leave when they discuss the decision what they're going to make. But they felt it was very, very severe issue, and that they felt that it was misconduct.
Furthermore, Robert went on to highlight that the egg controversy could have serious consequences not only for Chris Eubank Jr.'s promoter, Ben Shalom, but also for the main event itself. He made it clear that the £100,000 fine was a direct result of Eubank Jr.'s misconduct and unresponsiveness during the board's hearing, underlining that his behavior had left the board with no choice but to impose such a hefty penalty.
And ultimately, forget the egg thing, he struck him. And that could have had serious consequences, not just for Mr. Benn, but also for the show itself also.
Moving on, it's clear that Chris Eubank Jr. has been hit with a hefty fine, but the lingering question is whether he will actually pay it or not. This development has only added fuel to the already intense drama between him and Conor Benn, taking their rivalry to a whole new level. However, what remains to be seen is whether this situation actually concerns Chris Eubank Jr. himself. After the news broke, his bizarre reaction surfaced online where he appeared to show no remorse or regret over the incident or the fine. In fact, it only took 3 words for Chris Eubank Jr. to respond to the news, a reaction that has certainly raised a few eyebrows. He said, "Worth every penny." Furthermore, Chris Eubank Jr. seems far from frustrated by the imposed fine. Instead, he appears confident and unrepentant for his actions, which highlights the intensity of the rivalry between him and Conor Benn. This rivalry runs deep, rooted in the long-standing feud between their fathers, Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn. It seems both Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn are carrying the weight of their father's legacies and, in the process, may be losing sight of their own paths. Regardless of this, one thing is clear: they are set to deliver one of the most highly anticipated and big sellout showdowns in boxing. Eubank Jr., who has been relentlessly criticizing Conor Benn for failing drug tests, has received a direct response from Benn, who insists he is fully fit for the fight and has not failed any tests throughout the entire process. At the same time, Conor Benn has raised an objection, pointing out the disparity in their situations, where he hasn't been fined, but his longtime rival Chris Eubank Jr. has been slapped with a hefty penalty. This has sparked a sort of reversal, with the fine becoming a point of contention that plays in Conor Benn's favor.
I hate what he stands for. I hate what he did. Failing these 2 drugs tests is unacceptable.
No ban, cleared to fight, no fine.
Moving on, Chris Eubank Jr. has long had a strained relationship with his father, a dynamic that has intrigued many over the years. This tension became clear when his father openly expressed how hurt he felt by their ongoing issues. Despite this, any possibility of reconciliation seems to vanish when it comes to exchanging barbs with each other. Conor Benn has openly criticized Eubank Jr. for his father's disdain towards him, while Chris, in turn, is constantly on edge, ready to blast Benn over his past drug test failures. Although Benn's issues have since been resolved when it comes to stirring drama and fueling animosity, creating scenes of tension that lead to heated exchanges, both men are giving it their all. This ongoing back and forth has only added to the never-ending hype, ensuring that the excitement will continue to build until they finally meet in the ring.
Maybe not, none of your business. I think he's an absolute but big head. Even your dad don't like you. That's an accomplishment.
What if I was to slap you right now? Stop moaning about it. A little push and shove.
Amidst the ongoing feud between father and son, Harlem Eubank opened up about the situation, making a surprising revelation. He shared that there is a possibility Chris Eubank Sr. could be present to witness the fight and even corner Chris Jr. On the topic of Chris Eubank Sr. potentially returning to his son's corner, Harlem suggested that it might not be as big a deal as it seems. According to him, it could be something as simple as a few texts and a brief conversation to reunite father and son, hinting that Chris Eubank Sr. might very well be in his son's corner for this fight.
I think he could potentially be there, yeah. I don't think it would take too much for him to be there. It's just a few conversations and things to be worked out in between, I'm sure. But yeah, it's obviously a fight that, Chris Eubank Jr. is carrying the promotion alone,
Harlem Eubank continued by praising Chris Eubank Jr. for his exceptional efforts in promoting the fight. He highlighted that much of the promotion has been driven by Chris Jr. himself, emphasizing that without his hard work and dedication, the fight may not have garnered the attention it has, ultimately turning it into the entertainment spectacle it is. Harlem pointed out that despite lacking proper guidance and a solid team behind him, Chris Jr. has put everything into promoting the fight, stressing that his efforts deserve significant recognition and credit.
Why'd you say that?
Because he is the one that's engaged the public in this fight. Without Chris being Chris and knowing how to pull strings, and be 10 steps ahead mentally, as well as physically as he will be in the ring. Without him, there is no promotion for the fight.
Despite acknowledging the fight as an incredible entertainment spectacle, Harlem thinks it is a mismatch. He went on to offer his opinion on why he believes it's a mismatch. He emphasized that even the buildup has been mismatched, pointing out several factors that support his claims. Harlem stressed that weight classes exist for a reason and highlighted that Chris Eubank Jr. not only competes at a higher level but is also significantly larger than Conor Benn. He emphasized that this size and experience difference adds an undeniable mismatching element to the fight.
Definitely. I mean, the fight is, at the moment, is an entertaining spectacle. The fight itself is a mismatch. You know, the build-up has been a mismatch. You know, and
is that because Chris is too big? Do you think?
I don't think it's necessarily well. You know, it's obviously the size at a different weight class. You know, in boxing there's different weight classes, and you fight your weight. And Chris is, as well as being bigger, has fought at a much higher level.
Sharing his thoughts on the weight class differences ahead of the upcoming fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn on April 26, Harlem Eubank made it clear that he sees a significant mismatch. He confidently predicted that Chris Eubank Jr. will dominate Conor Benn in the fight, emphasizing that the size and experience gap is too wide for Benn to overcome. Harlem went on to suggest that after this fight, Chris Jr. should move on to face real competition, fighters who are truly on his level and would present a more fitting challenge. He made it clear that while this fight will be a spectacle, it's ultimately a stepping stone for Eubank Jr. towards bigger and more competitive matchups in the future.
So, you know, in terms of being at 147 pounds, you know, I'm the contender at 147 pounds. You know, I have the IBF Intercontinental Championship, and if Conor is a 147-pound fighter, then that is the fight, regardless of the names, the entertainment, the spectacle. But you know, Chris is obviously, you know, the fight goes ahead on April 26th. Chris, you know, annihilates him, and after that he'll rebuild, and I'm sure that the real fight at 147 pounds will take place.
Regardless of the differing opinions, one thing is certain: the fight is set to draw a massive crowd and promises to be one of the most exciting showdowns in the boxing community. Teddy Atlas shared his thoughts on the upcoming fight, breaking down how he believes it will play out. He analyzed Chris Eubank Jr.'s fighting skills and how they would give him an edge against Conor Benn. Atlas pointed out that Eubank Jr.'s hand speed and his ability to control distance would be key factors in the fight, allowing him to perform effectively and deliver a dominant performance against Benn.
You know, Eubanks, you know, wants to probably keep it on the outside as much as he can and use his skill sets to, you know, use his hand speed and his ability to throw counter punches and, you know, punches from different angles. He needs space, or space accommodates him pretty well and favors him pretty well when he has that space to do that.
Besides this, Teddy also shared his thoughts on how Conor Benn could capitalize on his skills during the fight. He emphasized that Benn would likely target the body, similar to how Artur Beterbiev attacked Dmitry Bivol, using pressure and a strategic approach to close the distance and get as close to Chris Eubank Jr. as possible. Atlas described this as an intriguing matchup and expressed his excitement to see how it unfolds, calling it a fight full of potential for great drama and skill.
And I would think that Benn would like to take that space away. You know, like to kind of work his way in and maybe go to the body like a Beterbiev with a Bivol, take the legs away, you know, slow him down a little bit, you know, put the pressure on him, you know, get to him, get into the geography that can get him as close as possible to him, to use his skill sets. You know, it should be an interesting fight.
And there you have it, folks. Whether it's the ongoing drama between father and son, the heated rivalry with Conor Benn, or the hefty, fine, and intense buildup, this fight is shaping up to be one for the ages. With both Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn bringing their unique styles to the ring, it's clear that this showdown will be packed with intensity, drama, and high stakes. No matter what the outcome will be, this fight is sure to leave a lasting mark on the boxing world. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think will come out on top? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this thrilling rivalry. Until next time, stay tuned.